What's something that poor people do better than rich people? Story 1. Handle adversity. I'm a pharmacist and I've worked in ultra-wealthy communities as well as very poor areas. And without question, it's the poor income folks that are better able to handle when things go wrong. If a substance isn't available or there's a mix-up with their prescription, they are much more understanding and reasonable in their responses. The rich people lose their shoot at even the most minor inconvenience. It's not quite ready yet, give me 5 more minutes. It'll take the poor people every day of the week. They are the real ones. Answer: this is so true. My wife works in acute mental health, and of the clients she sees, only about 20 are actual legitimate mental issues. The other 80 is split between substances-induced psychosis and young adults from privileged households who just got their first dose of reality and can't manage. Just to add, by legitimate mental issues, I mean diagnosable mental disorders like schizophrenia, OCD, clinical depression, serious trauma, etc., as opposed to external factors like substances, not trying to stigmatize anything. Story 2. Handle crises in stride. I was homeless at times as a teen, and I'm now watching my middle class and rich friends really freak out in midlife. They take every problem or roadblock as a personal offense, whereas I'm like, did I eat dinner tonight? Yeah? Then I'm good. Bad things happen, my dudes. Story 3. Generosity. Poor people are more likely to share. It goes against common sense, but it's been proven. Homeless people are known to be especially generous, as they understand how it feels to be without. Answer: in Puerto Rico, during the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Maria, it was total devastation. Rich and poor alike were stranded, no immediate government help. It was chaos and survival. There is a part of our town where the rich folks live, and they made so much effort to make it exclusive and secluded that they had no way out other than walk across the coastal line. A group of these rich folks came walking to our poor neighborhood asking for food and water. Some of them hadn't had anything to eat but water for the last 36-48 years. They were really in bad shape. Bro, we live in a coastal town. There's all kinds of seafood, crabs, fruit trees, basically all you need to survive. Zero survival instinct in some of these folks. Story 4. I work in property management and maintenance, and you would be surprised how many white-collar people can't figure out the simplest tasks like flipping a breaker, resetting a garbage disposal, or plunging a toilet. Answer: had a no-flush work order once. Walk in and dude's holding a stovepot, and it smells like shoot. Oh, perfect timing. I've been having to use this edit to flush IDK what's wrong. Is it perfect timing? I go and flip the valve on for the water. Plumbers had turned it off earlier in the day to snake multiple lines to help clear copious construction debris and trash causing multiple backups in a newly built residence. Go and tell him it's fixed after I flushed it a few times. What? Already? What was wrong? I tell him. The valve was just off for the water. He says, well, what do I do if it happens again? I showed him it and explained how to turn it. But let me ask you, what has this man done any time he clogged a toilet and the water was about to overflow? How do you reach adulthood without knowing some of this stuff? I'm not shaming nor judging, but Lord, it's scary sometimes. Story 5. They tend to be more creative with limited resources. Small, random, but relatable example. Using leftovers of whatever is in the fridge pantry and making an awesome meal. Instead of going out and buying fancy ingredients to make whatever you want in that moment, you need to get creative and hopefully develop some skill. Story 6. Cooking. To make a lot of cheap cuts good, you have to know what you're doing. A fillet is a 7-minute cook, same with a gorgeous salmon. You want to make turnips and brisket good, you need to know what you're doing. Story 7. I did my PhD at Harvard. I am first-gen college, and while I didn't grow up poor, per se, but not very wealthy, Harvard has people from every possible background. When I would teach undergrads, it was entirely clear that the wealthy kids were better equipped for difficult material, but the kids from more humble backgrounds were much better critical thinkers. They were not obsessed about giving the textbook right answer, lower-level memory skills, and were much more interesting, less worried, and better equipped to draw broadly and deeply to come up with nuanced answers. That's not to say that the poor kids were always more intelligent, although considering that those students had a much harder time getting to the university, they probably were on average to make it that far. But rather, very talented people who grew up poor were simply far more well-rounded in how they think and handle problems. They were also less likely to grade grub or cheat. They cared more about learning than their grades, and they took their education very seriously, as they knew its true value. Story 8. From what I've been through, having less really teaches you how to roll with the punches, appreciate the little things, and understand what others are going through. That kind of strength sticks with you and changes how you see the world. Sure, money can open doors, but the grit and gratitude from tough times shape who you really are. Story 9. I grew up poor American, and my husband grew up upper-middle-class European. I took for granted my dad knowing how to fix everything. I remember getting a leak under our sink, and I told my husband to fix it, and he stared at me like I grew 2 heads. I then had to turn off the water myself because he didn't know how to do that. I have found he doesn't know how to problem solve. He just stares until I move into action. It's been 10 years and he is better now. Story 10. Poor people are usually more willing to help others in need, even though they may be in need themselves, because we know what it's like to be without. When I was on the streets, the people that gave the most were folks that were one bad day away from homelessness, destitution themselves. Most rich people usually just look at homeless people as subhuman and always assume everyone that's there did something to deserve being there, which is extremely far from the truth, in more cases than not. Story 11. Practically everyone I know is a millionaire. They aren't good at anything except making money. They are generally shallow, lonely, and miserable people. Most millionaires I know don't work. They also think that poor people make $10,000 a month. They are out of touch with reality. As a poor person, I appreciate the little things that they don't even understand or wouldn't even notice. Also, whether they have 1 million, 200 million, or a billion, they all pretty much have the same lifestyle. Meaning, once you have 1 million, the rest is just partied too hard, not circulating in the economy. Nobody should ever have more than 10 million. That should be the maximum allowable cap. Everything over 5 million should be taxed at no less than 80. Story 12. Survival, probably. By which I mean the poor would survive and adapt to an after-the-end-of-the-world scenario better than a rich person. A poor person is already used to finding ways to cope with nothing, especially like homeless living on the streets level poor. Story 13. Not being wasteful with food. Poor people will make enough food and eat everything on their plate. They take home their leftovers from restaurants and give it to their spouse or eat it later. Rich people will order more than they'll eat so they can try different flavors, not eat it all, and not take home leftovers. Story 14. A whole lot of stuff. A lot of poor people just know how to do a ton of stuff. Most rich people don't even know how to do. Like laundry, cleaning our own homes, repairing things like clothes, vehicles, home maintenance, cooking, making things, and just being a heck of a lot more resourceful than folks that just pay people to do everything for them or buy something new even before their old stuff breaks. Story 15. Live. I spent enough time as a homeless person around those from wealth. They always need external things, from objects to social validation. I am perfectly content spending an afternoon with a tree and watching the sky while these weirdos are upset about their paint color or their clothing brand or their vacation package. It is so weird I can't understand caring. You have food, warmth, a home, access to medical care. The rest are hallucinations of the depraved. Story 16. Being environmentally friendly. Out of necessity, consuming less, reusing items, getting the most out of what you have, and overall polluting less. No poor person is taking weekly or daily flights, often less driving and more utilization of public mass transit. Story 17. Empathy, generosity, perseverance, work EDK. I can't think of many things someone being rich would have an advantage on in any way that isn't purely them having a massive crutch to lean on with their money. Business decisions, leisure activities. Blow me LMFAO. Story 18. I raised 6 kids in a 1500 FLSF house I kept for 30 years. We were dirt jerk poor, and at one point had 4 boarded windows on the back of the house. We faced balancing which utility we were going to find shut off when we got home from work. No entertainment, lots of hamburger helper, dollar menu items. It was ugly and caused me incredible stress. I worked 2 jobs, couldn't sleep, and quietly suffered inside, giving my kids the best of me that I had left. I was making crap money. Had a state job that I absolutely dislike that the stress caused me to vomit almost every morning on my way out the door. The kids grew up. Some got degrees, some advanced degrees, some married military, and of them all, one struggles the same way I did, keeping her children from knowing just how poor they really are. It changed overnight when, as a reservist, I got called to active duty in the military. The pay was more than double what I was making at my job. So first payday I paid the bills and got a window fixed. Next payday, same. I started putting money into deferred compensation like the government's thrift savings plan. I got credit from the state for time I was on active duty 5.5 years and retired in 2021. After 20 years with a pension, the active duty allowed me to get the GI Bill, so I went to school full-time while working, got 2 degrees, got paid for going. Retired from reserves in 2011 and VA disability started in 2013. The back pay and a mutual fund gave us the 20 down on another house in a low-cost part of the country, and the monthly compensation from the VA almost took care of the mortgage payment. State pension is 50 of my salary, but without all the withholding for investments or pension. We sold our home and moved to Texas, where we paid off everything. Now we have a 6-figure retirement. Income and absolutely no debt. I refuse to even buy a tractor because it costs too much, so I do it all with a walk behind 2-wheel tractor with attachments. I refuse the idea of accumulating more debt. I'd rather wish I had something than pay for it. My mentality shifted when I paid everything off. I feel free. Hope you all get to this place. It is such a blessing. Best wishes. Story 19. Quite literally everything. Rich people are generally devoid of all useful skills outside of a boardroom. Any physical labor whatsoever. Any customer service jobs of any kind. Any job requiring critical thinking, insight, and compromise, understanding basic human needs, empathy, and just how hard life can be for some people, or even most people at some point. Rich people rarely have a good sense of humor. They're too disconnected from the realities of life to be relatable. They generally have no real opinions, taste, or fashion. They just go with whatever is most expensive for better or worse. Extreme wealth is really an all-around tragic disorder, which not only sets off a rapid process of self-aggrandizing and delusion, but also paranoia, insecurity, and egomania. It's not tragic because the rich are psychos. It's tragic because the only way anyone becomes that rich is by exploiting the working class. So millions and billions of humans have to live on the edge of survival, just so some rich folks can go absolutely batshit crazy on money and power. Nothing good ever came from it. Nothing ever trickled down to the workers. It was always just senseless, irrational. Hoarding at everyone else's expense. Story 20. They are humble and appreciate every single thing they have. They have better manners and understand, please, and thank you go a long way. They know how to survive with very little what they have. They make the best out of life more emo. They understand that life is not about materialism, but about taking care of each other. Story 21. Have genuine friends. I feel like the rich circle turns into a game of one-upping each other. Who's got the nicer house, car, better job, nicer neighborhood? There's so much comparing in those circles. When I didn't have much, moments with friends just felt genuine. Story 22. I find they have a lot more community spirit. I grew up in a rich neighborhood and now live in a working-class estate. Rich neighbors were friendly but distant. Neighbors down here all socialize together, help with each other's kids, offer support when someone's having a hard time. It's a really beautiful thing. Story 23. In my experience, it's being generous. A friend of mine is a postman, and once he was telling me that the poor districts of the city are more popular among his colleagues because they tend to get more tips when working there. Story 24. Cook. Using America as an example, if there's one uniquely and quintessentially American cuisine, it's barbecue. Slow-smoked, well-seasoned meats. That wasn't invented by some millionaire's private chef or something. It was poor Southern folk doing what they could with the ingredients they had available to them. And it's some of the best darn food you can find. Hell, how about tacos? Those aren't haute cuisine, it's a peasant dish. And honestly, even upscale cuisine. It's by and large not millionaires from rich families who are inventing it. It's passionate chefs who want to cook and make a modest living doing it. Usually, if they become rich, it's off the back of their success as a chef, not vice versa. Story 25. Repair their own things, usually pretty well too. I grew up and lived most of my adult life poor. We're not rich by any means now, but we're financially sound. We need to replace our back deck and my boyfriend wants to hire it out. I said, absolutely not. It is 100-something I can do in a weekend or two. I told him if he wants to pay someone, he can pay me. Story 26. Tolerance. I feel like rich people get this insane entitlement, which makes them think everything that is inconvenient must be fixed or eliminated, and one main thing poorer people do is withstand broken, used, or unclean things. Because they have no choice, basically. Poor people can learn skills to help them cope as a result of not having the money to buy services or new things each and every time. No, we don't have the newest phone model, but we can fix a computer to work a bit better. No, our kitchen appliances aren't the newest models, but we keep everything clean and we find innovative ways to make it work for US. No, our homes aren't full of top-of-the-line furniture, and we don't own penthouses, but we can DIY some stuff to make ourselves feel more at home. No, our food is not the freshest and healthiest, like LA's Erewhon, but we share recipes in our communities to give our meals nutritional value and flavor. Point is, we make it work with us, whereas richer people make people work for them. Story 27. Give. A poor person will give their last $20 and ask for nothing in return. They will show up to help a friend who is moving and lift heavy objects for 4 hours for a slice of pizza and a couple beers. A poor person will give what little they have left just to help another not be in their situation. A rich person will give the least possible while bragging about how much they give, and they will do it so no one else can share their situation. Story 28. This is a really interesting quote. I used to deliver pizzas for Domino's, and I swear to God the best tips I got consistently were from people in the trailer parks not too far from our store. I wish I was making that up. Some of the loveliest people I've ever met. Story 29. I once got stranded in the rough part of town with a dead battery. I opened the hood and within moments had 5 guys helping me. They organized jumper cables a car to jump from and told me I can break the battery open, pee in it a few times, and it's going to last a while longer, and then they told me to get out of there ASAP. Story 30. 100. My parents were dirt poor their whole life, but if anyone ever came to them for any kind of help, they do whatever they could. Contrast that against myself, grown up now and living in a suburb. I could imagine going to a neighbor's house to ask for anything. They probably wouldn't answer the door, let alone hear me out on whatever issue I had. Story 31. So true, my daughter traveled to Cuba. Cubans have nothing, and yet they are humble, kind, and generous people. Not a bitter bone in their body. Yes, they would give you the shirt off their back. Such amazing, strong, non-violent, rage-less people who always have a smile on their face. Story 32. That's because pain is proportionate to experience. To someone who has never had an injury before, a scrapped knee can feel like dying. It's why kids wail over minor scrapes. To someone living a charmed life, the slightest inconvenience feels like a grave injustice. Someone who is shat on regularly realizes shoot happens and you just deal with it. Story 33. This is so true. My wife works in acute mental health, and of the clients she sees, only about 20 are actual legitimate mental issues. The other 80 is split between substances-induced psychosis and young adults from privileged households who just got their first dose of reality and can't manage. Just to add, by legitimate mental issues, I mean diagnosable mental disorders like schizophrenia, OCD, clinical depression, serious trauma, etc., as opposed to external factors like substances, not trying to stigmatize anything. Story 34. This. Rich people, especially those that grew up rich, don't understand how to scrap to make a project work. Dated a girl who refused to make a documentary about her dying grandparents because she needed $10,000 and a special camera and crew and mic. Like WTF are you talking about? And made her entire video with an iPhone, a 20 mic, my grandparents, and a little post-editing just to piss her off. Story 35. I am so grateful for a warm shower and a bed to sleep in. I think about how many people would absolutely prefer my situation regardless of the other problems I have. Struggle gives you so much appreciation for little things. I also faced homelessness and food insecurity in adolescence, and I can confidently say I am happier being an adult. Story 36. I've been on both extremes and I agree fully. I appreciate what I have and am careful because I don't want to go back. The people I know who have always been wealthy can be unappreciative and disrespectful, yet people who have never had a dime and still don't can be pretty judgmental about people doing what they want with their own money and things. Story 37. I had $1,000 left over from my student loans, and a few of my close co-workers were talking with me one day about how I should spend it since I'd never had that much money before. A different co-worker walks in and is like, "It's only $1,000. What's the big deal?" I always have at least that much in my account for rainy days. Like honey, as someone who grew up so poor that I was learning at 8 years old how to poach rabbit and duck because we couldn't afford to buy meat. 1,000 is an insane amount of money. Story 38. The way I think is, if a person can eat the best chocolate of the world anytime they want, let's say once a day, and no other chocolate is as good as this chocolate, this person is unable to eat the bad ones, and his joy of eating the good chocolate will be high but fall over time. A person who eats mostly bad chocolate and sometimes the good one will have a far better enjoyment of the good chocolate. If thinking about a graph, the total enjoyment of only eating the best will be smaller than sometimes eating the best. Maybe that's why rich people seems to do substances more often. They have everything, so the next hit of dopamine could be substances fun. On the other side, poor people who have nothing needs cheap stuff to cope. Story 39. I had a 99 Avalon as my first car in 2013, poorly taken care of, rusty, broken shocks, some windows didn't open, had to add oil every few hundred miles, no AC, ran it into the ground until 2019. Now I have a 18 A4. I had some wealthier family ask me over the years if I've gotten used to it yet, like when the excitement calms down. Hell no. Every time I step in, I feel comfort and relief with the beauty that is that car. Every so often, I audibly, say, I love this car. I do my own maintenance repairs to save money. It helps when I have to replace something expensive I can't do myself. But it's well maintained. I hope to hold on until it becomes financially unviable to hold it anymore. So maybe another decade, hopefully. Story 40. This is such an interesting point of view when you have seen both, being poor and doing really good. I'm from a poor family in a rural area where we basically had nothing as kids. No consoles or anything, just a TV. Later in life, several lucky streaks got me a good job, and eventually I could buy high electronics and stuff easily. But what makes me different to my colleagues, who've many come from at least middle-class families, I treasure everything I own. A laptop that cost a lot. I don't throw it around knowing I could technically buy a new one, but because having it means something to me. There's also really odd takes from richer people about being poor. When it comes up how much my childhood sucked, people will blurt out stuff like, "But you were happy because you were kids and you didn't know you were poor," or something. I've gotten monologues how fortunate I have been to play with toys made from household trash. Guess what? I knew I was poor, so did my siblings. We had friends. Those friends had big TVs in the 80s, consoles and computers. It was very obvious how poor we were when our second-hand clothes with patches and stuff were always pointed out, or my younger brothers. Bullied for having to wear my old jackets and other stuff that was unisex enough. Story 41. I once worked at a bank call center. A man called questioning his 1.86 purchase he made at McDonald's. He paid in cash and had the receipt to show the debit was declined. I credited the transaction back. He had over 1.2 million in his checking account. I am dumbfounded how he even noticed. The rich monitor every penny. Story 42. This is true, but it's also probably the reason those high earners achieve financial freedom. I have so much more freedom and savings now that I track every penny. Thanks, YNAB. That said, I've never sent anyone a Venmo request, and I think being generous, picking up a meal here and there, buying a round or covering a night out, springing for thoughtful gifts, is a very good thing when possible, especially when you're aware your friends don't make as much as you do. Answer: I think it's more that the traits that allow people to become rich often result in them being the type to penny pinch. The reality is that these little amounts genuinely will not affect them, even over a lifetime. but the type of person who is very aware and protective of where their money goes is also more likely to keep track of the petty stuff. And a lot of stuff like the friends they make and larger purchases are calculated. Friends are often other rich people and useful connections. Big purchases are not just things they like, but also items that will not depreciate in value. So, their wealth stays the same or increases in a non-taxable way.